Chris Olson. Chris Olson. All right, can you see that on your side?
Yeah. Are you muted?
Yeah, to me too. The better these Zoom meetings are.
My broadcast is coming through to you through about 38 inches of snow. 41 to 38 inches is what we got.
Wow.
Yeah.
And actually, that's not even a joke.
Hey, if Pat can make it in, we're coming to work.
I know, with his monster truck.
My broadcast through to you through about
One. It's all right.
Rob, I am definitely impressed with that Christmas cheer lighting. That's awesome.
No, I got a whole room full of it, Ed. I love it. Hopefully the grandkids can see it.
Yeah.
What?
You're all over the national news there, Ed.
Yeah, I heard they even mentioned Binghamton on Fox News. I thought that was kind of interesting. You know, it says something too when there's no more snowmobiles on the road than actual vehicles.
I remember that in Oswego County. It used to be like that regularly.
Yeah,
The 40s a lot.
yeah. They shut everything down. They actually banned travel too, so it's only emergency travel right now.
We're all disappointed you didn't travel up for the board meeting. This is
Sorry if I keep getting up and sitting back down. I literally just walked in the door about a couple minutes ago, so I'm trying to get everybody fed.
You have had a busy day, Jim. All over the place.
Yeah, I put some miles on the vehicle this morning. That's for sure, but that's all right.
Keeps you sharp.
That's right. Yeah, one of our other CMs, Tim Weber, emailed a picture. He got 38. He measured 38 inches outside his door over for Sydney schools.
Yeah, Tim's office is right above ours in Binghamton.
Yep.
We're on the 3rd floor. He's up on the 5th floor.
Yeah.
Oh, then I have been to your building.
Oh yeah, you've been to that building, Rob?
Had a meeting with Tim once upon a time.
Yeah, a lot of people call it the radio station building because there's like 3 different radio stations in it too.
Hey. Crack open the door. Yep.
This is 100% Zoom, right? The board meeting too.
Good evening, everyone. We're just wrapping up our executive session.
Hi.
On meeting. Be right back.
Still missing a few, right? Pat's not on yet, is he?
Yeah, he's trying to get on right now. He says joining.
Okay, there he is. Yep. Thanks,
I
mate.
may
Yep.
have to close out my video on occasion because it's that's I think what's making me glitch. Like right now.
Got it. All right. Is Lauren with us or just in process?
I don't see him trying to connect.
I see him on.
Oh yeah, there he is. Yep.
His
Okay.
camera's off though right now.
Okay.
It's on.
I think we have everybody now, so thanks everyone for coming, and those joining online, welcome to our December 2020 board meeting. Unfortunately, we have a sad task to take care of first. Messina School District this week suffered a tragic loss with the unexpected death of a junior high student in 7th grade, Adam Miller. Our thoughts and prayers go out to Adam's family and those who are close to him. By all accounts, he was a very polite young man, a kind fellow. He loved hunting, fishing, and just being outdoors. So we're greatly saddened by the loss, and we send out our deepest condolences to Adam's family. So now, if you wouldn't mind, I'd ask for a moment of silence in memory of Adam Miller. Thank you very much. Moving on to our meeting, we'll start with approval of our minutes from November the 19th. I have a motion for that, please, from board members.
I'll move minutes.
Yeah. Any question or discussion? All those in favor then, show of hands, please. Thank you. Get that, Angie? I don't believe we have any board correspondence, so we'll move on.
Pat, one correspondence came in today that I wanted to
Oh.
mention.
Okay.
It was from the VFW,
Okay.
post 1143 here in Messina, and they wanted to inform us that Wyatt White and Madeline Kepper placed first and second, respectively, in the post 1143 VFW Patriots Pen Youth Essay Competition. These are 6th graders. The theme for this year was, "What is patriotism to me?" We had 62 entries this year, 33 last year, so almost doubled the number of entries of our students that were doing the writing contest. And they wanted to thank Mrs. Gallagher of Nightingale and Mrs. Terminelli of Jefferson Elementary, who supported those students and had them write their essays. Wyatt is the son of Tammy White, and Madeline Kepper is the daughter of Carl and Elena Kepper. So I wanted to mention that correspondence. We're very proud of their work.
Nice, congratulations. Yep. Okay, moving on with our committee meetings. We have a policy committee meeting. Trustee Haggett, if you want to share some of the info from that.
Well, just to hit a few of the highlights from that meeting. On November 23rd was our last committee meeting. We got a little bit of a sneak peek from a new policy that we're going to be considering soon, policy 3421, Title IX and sex discrimination. It's not on the agenda for this evening because Mr. Brady wanted to have a few questions and clarifications ironed out with the school attorney before he brought this to, for sort of some official back and forth with the committee. It's a very lengthy, very complicated policy. It's part of federal law, and it's based on guidance that was received from the Trump administration. And obviously, things may change in terms of the Department of Education guidance going forward. So there were a few things that sort of made us pause a little bit on this before we start talking about it for real. Other policies that we had to look at were in the 5000 series. We looked at policy on communicable diseases that has been pretty much rewritten. We also had a couple of transportation related policies that we looked at, 5710, 5720, 5730. And there have been some reworking of those as well, just language wise. And a couple of policies in the transportation realm are on the agenda tonight for being rescinded because those the wording of those policies has been reworked into those other three transportation related policies. And kind of the main highlight from this line of discussion is that the policy 5710 keeps the current mileage limits for district transportation at 3/4 of a mile for pre-K through 6th grade students and 1.5 miles for 7 through 12 students. And our next meeting is December 21st.
Thanks, Paul. Any questions for Paul? Next up was facilities. Kevin, if you wouldn't mind giving us a highlight.
I'm going to skip over most of the capital project things and capital outlay. Anything that's going to be covered in the few presentations later on the board, I'm going to let those go.
Sure.
The only other outliers to that was there was a discussion about an extension of the sidewalk at the junior high school up towards Highland. So that's being sorted out if we can work with the village towards extending that sidewalk up for the continuance of travel up that way. And also we discussed the snowplow contract and some things we're working out with that to changes that are going to happen with possible sharing of the salt and storing of salt at the village. So we're looking at those things moving forward.
Kevin, was there at one point there was I don't know if we had to get agreement from the property owner, or was that an issue, or is that a non-issue? You know,
for
the sidewalk, from the junior high up to the.
I don't want to speak for the village, but I believe that that's all in the village's hands. Okay. How that happens, because I believe, I mean, I used to be the engineer for the village and I used to do that work. I think they can dictate that sidewalk go in, but I don't want to get into the nuances of the politics of that.
Sure.
So they're looking into it, the best way for that to happen and whatnot. And okay. I think it's.
Thank you. Any other questions for Kevin on that? Okay, Finance Committee, Lauren, I believe you had a meeting tonight.
Yeah, it's a very short meeting. Bottom line is, I think we all know that we are in for a tough budget year, probably for the next 3 years minimum. You know, so we're taking a look at everything. We are gonna do the best we can to maintain our programs, and that's all I can say at this point. There's a lot of unknowns, a lot that could change it, including a federal stimulus package. But as of right now, there's more questions than answers, but things are not looking good. I can answer any specific questions anyone may have if I can.
Thanks, Lauren. Any questions for Lauren? Okay, I don't have anything this evening, so we'll move on to reports from administration. Mr. Brady.
Okay, thanks, Pat. We do have Ed Bernhauer from IBI Architect is on. I think I see Rob Gray as well, and Jim Francisconi from CNS, and they're going to provide an update on the capital improvement project. Let me Oops. Mike, you're gonna have to co-host. Let me share my screen.
And I think the way that we'll start off,
I'll start,
Pat, is Jim and Rob are just going to give us a quick update on phase one verbally as to kind of really reiterating what we presented to the board last month. There hasn't been a whole lot to change, but I'll kick it over to you, Jim, for any further updates for this month.
No, not much has really changed. We are, from a construction standpoint, we're just eagerly waiting for, obviously, the phase two documents to come out so we can get going on that. But we're right now just cleaning up the paperwork end of things on phase one with the contractors and trying to get all of their contract changes incorporated so that in the next season, we're just hitting the ground running and not just proceeding as productively as we can. We did identify a couple of changes that were going to be implemented in the spring. So if you recall, we had a $600,000+ allowance built into the contract, and as of right now, we're looking at projecting about $332,000, and that's mind you, that's an estimated cost total. Again, those are monies that are already incorporated into each of the contracts. But there was a water main repair that we're looking to do outside the central administration building. That was kind of at the top of our list. So just to give you an idea that we're trying to look ahead and get ahead of, get into some issues, underground, unforeseen conditions before the contractors arrive on site, things that we know might become an issue as we've spent more time on site with people. So that's it on the construction side. We did also meet this morning with a roofing contractor to resolve their contract as well, and did formally advise them that we are going to be basically closing out their contract, or we'd like to close out their contract through a deduct change order. And we're going to rebid the roofing scope into smaller contracts to try and anticipate or entice a couple more roofing contractors to bid the work for next summer. And hopefully we'll get 2 contractors versus just 1. And we're hopeful that that will draw, the required manpower we need to get the work done timely for next summer. The meeting went about as well as expected, and we're in negotiating phases right now to try and close out that contract. That's all I have on the construction side. And Rob, if you want to add anything or take it into more of on the pre-con for phase 2.
Well, we finally wound up our meetings on the phase 2 review and the scope, and we're all set. And the really good news is I know that Superintendent Brady got notice from SCD today that they're actually looking at it finally. So we'll be getting a review underway and stay on task to go out to bid early next year.
Thanks, Jim. Thanks, Rob. Any questions, guys, on phase 1 or the start here? I'll talk a little bit about phase 2 and phase 3 as we get into the presentation, but any questions for our gentleman for phase 1? All right, so jumping into kind of the presentation that Mr. Brady pulled up, if we go ahead a slide, Mr. Brady, to our agenda, what we're briefly going to touch on tonight is we're going to take a look at, give you a quick update on the capital outlay, and also take a look at where our capital improvement phases 2 and 3 stand. And then I wanted to dive into and spend the majority of the time talking about the building condition survey. We really haven't had a chance to speak about that yet. So I want to give you a brief overview of that, kind of a look at what some of the documents look like, and just kind of outline the steps to that process as our building condition survey for Messina School District is due this year. So we're going to kind of dive into that and take a look, and then any questions that you may have. So just as a quick update on our capital outlay project, we did have our bid opening, and we had a good bids. We had 2 bidders, and the low bidder was Environmental and Fueling Systems. As a side note, we were happy to see that they were low bidder because they were actually a consultant in the design phases of the project. So we're familiar with this company. We've done a number of projects with them before. In fact, with some BOCEs for fuel stations. So we're very confident that we should have a good project with this particular contractor. In addition, as you see in your board packets, there is a letter of recommendation to award. And so we're actually in good shape budget-wise with the bid that they did place. And so basically it's all full steam ahead moving forward with our capital outlay project. The construction still is anticipated for the week of February 13th, and we're trying to finish up that work in approximately 1 week time frame, a week to 10 days. And so this has been confirmed with the contractor that they are also in agreement with that schedule. Any questions, anyone, on our capital outlay project? All right, we'll move on to an update on our phase 2 and phase 3. As Rob was saying, we got good news this afternoon that SCD has logged in our phase 2 submission. And currently we are doing the expedited third-party review. So that should be about 4 weeks long, we anticipate, for the total process. That will allow us to get comments back at the beginning of the year, respond to them, and get out to bid, as Rob said, as soon as possible. So again, taking advantage of this bid time of the year and hopefully getting some aggressive bids. After that, what we'll be doing is entering into construction. And once again, this is for this coming summer, the summer of 2021 for phase 2. It does involve primarily the elementary schools, as we've reviewed in the past when we were reviewing the scope. And then there's a few other minor items at some of the other buildings. But primarily, this is the elementary schools up first here for our work. There is some work at the transportation center as well. Then in phase 3, which is primarily our junior high school and our high school scope, if you recall, also along with that, the central administration building. We are currently in the design process on that. And again, we're going to be finishing that up and submitting in February. And then once again, going out to bid in April. Now you'll see, I did note, it is noted as later. What we're gonna do, as we kind of mentioned a little bit before, is take a look at the bid climate at that time and see what's most advantageous for bidding, whether it is to bid it immediately once we get approval or to wait, depending on what we see on the streets, and working with CNS as well to see, what is the current climate at that time. We do have some time because really all of that work is scheduled for the summer of 2022. So there is some time to really pick the best time for bidding and really get the most aggressive bids in for that phase 3. Any questions on phase 2 or phase 3 at this point, guys?
Yeah, Ed, I guess I have a question.
Yeah, Paul.
How common is it that bids are solicited, well over a year out of work being done on a contract?
That actually, in the timing of it, especially for public schools, is fairly common, especially too seeing the increase in lead times. And again, we're really getting mixed signals, and I'll kind of turn to Rob and Jim to comment on this well, but whether COVID is affecting lead times or not, it's been kind of a mixed bag. Some manufacturers have said yes, some have said no. But what it's done is the fear of that has actually pushed the bidding out to be more aggressive and earlier than what we've seen in the past. In the past, more common would be anywhere from 9 to 6 months ahead of the construction. But now we're seeing that time extended further just to get on boards earlier and get the submittals done earlier to get the orders in earlier. Some particular products, and specifically door slabs, door hardware, and some of the mechanical items have gone upwards to anywhere from 18 to 20 weeks lead time. And so based on that, we're seeing kind of those bids push earlier and earlier.
To add to that, some of some mechanical equipment has gone as far out now as 22 weeks from approval. So if you add to that 22 weeks, the time it takes for the contractor to develop their drawings to get approved, plus the time it takes for them to buy out their contract. So there's another 4 weeks there. And then the time for us to actually review bids, right? Your 22 weeks for a specialized piece of equipment, you know, can jump right up to 30. Another scenario that we just experienced in Clinton County was, and the team has heard me say this before, is wood doors, where we've had wood doors ordered in April only to receive them in September. So to echo Ed's point, you know, 6 or 9 months in advance is really kind of ideal. And so when Ed is suggesting April or later, the later would be like in the fall.
Mhm. And the reason too that we kind of suggest that is the one thing I want to avoid, Paul, is the contractors during their construction season for public schools. Sometimes if you bid during that kind of area, like middle of summer, you don't get quite the interest as you would outside of that time frame, just because they're so busy. And so that's what we're just trying to avoid, that scenario. So we either want to be before it or we want to be after it.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Ed, just a quick question. If we do have some surplus on some of the jobs that, you know, we have kind of on the waiting list, if we have the money to do those, would we be looking to push those off till phase 3 or not necessarily? Does it depend where we're working, kind of thing?
Yeah, and it also depends on what the particular scope item is, Pat. One of the things that we've been able to do, and actually we've done this on phase 1, similar to Jim mentioned the water main item. If we have scope that's currently in a phase and we have a wish list item that's related to that scope, or is, again, that same scope, just a different instance of it, right? Or another occurrence of it. We're allowed to add that right into the project using our field directive allowances and using change orders. So our first line of attack would be to do that, so to speak. You know, in phase 2 and phase 3, once we get under construction, if we see some of those wish list items of similar scope and construction's looking good and the numbers are looking good as far as our finances, we would add that right in using FDA and change orders. If it's something that's completely different, then what we would do is we would just initiate another phase. And that's something we can just coordinate, you know, based on what we're seeing financially that's happening.
Okay. Makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions, guys? All right, so moving on to our building condition survey. Now, please forgive me if any of you have heard this a number of times before, but for those who haven't, I just want to kind of summarize what the building condition survey is about. New York State Education Department requires this survey to be done every 5 years. And before this year, they actually used to have it as all school districts across New York State had to submit on at the same time. The problem that they've had, though, once they've gone to a digital submission, and this is a digital submission online for this survey, they actually experienced a number of different issues with the website crashing and on their end trying to maintain and deal with all of those submissions at the exact same time. So this is the first year that SED has come forward and actually staggered the submissions dates. And Messina, a lucky candidate, wound up being in the first year. So your condition survey is due this year. And so what it involves is that you have your architects and engineers go out and survey the conditions of all of your educational occupied buildings. And we basically create a report for State Education Department that does two things. One, it basically says, all right, we've done the field work in these buildings, and here is the existing condition to evaluate health, safety, welfare issues, and then also maintenance issues and maintaining your facilities. But in addition to that, it also plans out what you're looking at for future capital projects and what would be the cost of those projects. So there's really kind of the two parts to it of, you know, identifying what is the need physically in the buildings and then what is the cost associated with it. Now, our fieldwork really has been completed already. Part of this is there is an overlap with the existing capital improvements, obviously, that we're doing. And so that all has been documented. But one of the things I did want to note is we at IBI, we do it a little bit differently than some of the other firms. We feel that it's important that each of the systems are identified and documented by the person who has the expertise in that field. So whereas some people go out and it's one person that does the entire building condition survey, I myself will do the architecture portion. My lead mechanical engineer will be doing the survey for the mechanical portion. The electrical systems were surveyed by our lead electrical engineer, and then plumbing by the plumbing engineer, and so on. So we actually have a specialist for each kind of discipline that does the existing survey. Now, once all of that information is gathered, it's actually built into a database, and a form is filled out for New York State Education Department and submitted online. That form is due and to be submitted by March 1st, 2021 for Messina. And then afterwards, we actually add to that and we create what's called the 5-year plan. Now, really, the 5-year plan is also kind of a master plan for the school district. It takes all of this information that's gathered from the existing condition survey and organizes it with costs, and then also projects forward as to how would the district approach any of the renovations that we've identified that are needed. How would you schedule that out over the next 5 years? And how is that organized? Now, this 5-year plan really doesn't get submitted per se by a particular date to State Education Department, but the executive summary is used whenever you submit a capital improvements project. You use your current executive summary, and that goes along with the capital improvements project, so that SED knows that this isn't a project out of the middle of anywhere. It's actually based off of what your facility needs are and addressing certain facility needs. So that kind of, in a nutshell, sort of gives you the whole idea of the building condition survey. And I just wanted to jump in quick and show you what some of the documents look like as part of this. And I've kind of taken some samples. So if we go to the next slide, you'll see the first few pages here that we're taking a look at are the actual form itself that State Education Department requires. And as you'll see here, it starts out with some general information about the building, and this is done per building. There is a form per building that is submitted per occupied educational building. And so as we kind of come down through, you'll see just some general things like square footage and the number of occupants. There's some more general information of, does the district own the building? What are the users? What's the function of the building? And as we continue to go down on the third page, the kind of important thing to summarize is it comes down to an evaluation that the architects and engineers must give each building. That evaluation is either unsatisfactory, satisfactory, or there's some other subcategories to that. But the real critical issue there is if you have a building that winds up being unsatisfactory, then what that means is in your next project, you have to address the items that are making that building unsatisfactory. If it is satisfactory, then it's a little bit more at the discretion of the district of picking and choosing. Now, as we continue to go on, if we scroll down a few more pages, you'll see that it gets into some very detailed items as to all of the different systems of the building, stormwater, site, interior doors here, and what it'll come into, and it'll ask you, is these systems, what is the expected age? Does it need to be replaced? And if so, what is the cost? Now, even with the amount of items, and there's over 100 items that's actually in the SED form, at IBI, we felt that it doesn't still really give you the amount of detail. As you saw in the interior doors, it has one category for interior doors. That's it. And so we actually, this page that you're looking at now, develop a database workbook that goes along with the SED form to give the district some more valuable information as part of that. So as you can see on here, for our interior doors, the gray line that actually goes across and where you see the 142,000 and you see the 1961 zero remaining life, the little X that's in the unsatisfactory category, that gray line is all that the SED form has. If you go below though, we drill into some detail as to what's actually in that interior doors category, right? So we get into your wood doors, the door slabs, what are they made of? We add some notes, we add the years that are there, remaining useful life, the quantity that we've evaluated, and what is the cost for the replacement of those. And then also too, all the way over to the right, there's some additional notes if there's any special scenarios. So this really can be used as a tool for the facility manager as well as to almost like an asset management tool of here is your existing conditions and here's all the components that feed into that building condition survey. So this is done in conjunction with the form and filling out the form. But as we continue to go down, you'll see there are a number of items. Now on this page here, you'll see in the SED forms, if you recall, the building has an overall category, whether it's unsatisfactory or satisfactory. What that really ties down to is you can have particular elements in your building that are unsatisfactory and still get a satisfactory rating on the overall building. But if you have a health, safety, welfare issue, and those in this form, as you see the little numbers and you see like this communication systems has the H next to it, that's a health issue as deemed by New York State Education Department. If that particular system winds up being unsatisfactory, the entire building gets an overall unsatisfactory for its rating. So that's where we want to take a real hard look and take a real close look at those items to make sure that they're either satisfactory or unsatisfactory. And as I said, this has nothing to do with your certificate of occupancy. This actually has to do with your next capital project, what items need to be included into it and what items are more at the discretion of the district. So as we continue to scroll down, and you'll see those are just some examples of different items that are documented here. Again, the heating systems, that's a health item, cooling, air conditioning systems, if the district has it. And then also, it even gets into some maintenance items. Like on this page here, you'll see that they do ask about pest management programs that the district may have in place and what's being done for pest management, what's being done for indoor air quality as a program. So there is a bit of this that the district, it's about programs and not necessarily the actual physical facilities as well. And this is where we would work with the facilities director, and we'll work with Greg to make sure that all of these items are accurate and updated. So if we continue to go on, that's the form that you're looking at here that will be submitted on March 1st. Now, after that's complete, we'll actually jump into what we call the 5-year plan.
And so there's a game that went out, and it was
5-year plan is actually, as I said, really taking all of this information and organizing it and strategizing with the district as to moving forward, how are we going to address these items and how are we going to address the capital improvements. And so as we scroll down, you'll see we really break it into 3 parts, the executive summary first. And this is the portion that actually is required to be submitted with every project that you submit to SED for commissioner's approval. The executive summary really starts out with just a general summary on the district itself and kind of summarizing different aspects of student enrollment, number of buildings, and then we list out all of the facilities. Typically, too, in the 5-year plan, one of the key differences as well is we will survey all of your facilities. SED requires only the building condition survey to be submitted on your occupied educational buildings, but we include all buildings because that becomes ultimately part of your district's responsibility for maintaining your facilities. Just because they're not an educational building doesn't mean you don't have to maintain them. So we include all of that in the 5-year plan. And so as you move forward in the executive summary, after we kind of list off the general aspects of the district, you have for every building a list of the improvements that we're seeing that would be needed over the next 5 years. And it goes down into each of the categories of exterior, interior, mechanical, electrical, plumbing, and it lists off all of those different improvements. That's the piece that actually goes with your capital projects to prove to SED that, listen, we've planned this, it's part of our 5-year plan. So again, these scope items aren't coming out of the middle of nowhere. They're actually been planned for and thought of, and this is part of the maintenance for the district. So as we jump into the second section, we drill into some more detail. We have a building inventory section, and so basically for every building, we'll have a narrative that describes those items that you saw on the list in the executive summary, and it talks a little bit more detail about the different systems, what state they're in, and what particular parts of that system need to be replaced or renovated in upcoming projects. And then as you continue to go down, you'll have a summary sheet, building inventory sheet. And this just summarizes some of the basic information after the narrative that you're seeing here. And this inventory sheet kind of summarizes the basic information for the building, such as square footages, additions, building age, things such as that. And then after that, we do include a floor plan as well of the building with all of the spaces and all of the names of the spaces for you. So gives you a sense of what the building looks like. And as we continue to go down, the last part that we'll take a look at is the district-wide analysis. This is where the very first chart that you see here takes all of those different items by building and organizes it into a prioritization for the district. Now, this is where we can customize this a little bit for the district. Some districts choose to do just priority levels. So as you see here, it's priority 1, priority 2, priority 3. Other districts actually break it down into the 5 years. So what they want to achieve in each year, year 1, year 2, year 3, and so on through the 5-year cycle. So that's something that when we meet with your administrators, we'll kind of go over that, how they would like that organized as far as prioritization. But as we dive into it, you'll see that it'll jump into the next part where each building has a backup sheet that identifies every single scope and every single cost associated with that scope. And again, organized by priority within the building itself too. So any questions on our building condition survey?
Ed, it looks great. I think it's a lot of information there below the surface that's necessary to help us plan and Greg to, to do his work. So I think it's excellent.
Oh, thank you. Yep. Yeah, that's what we've found is that the more information that we can put in one location, the easier it is. One of the common problems is that with the facilities, there's just so many projects and so much information spread out all over, right? And so it's very difficult to go to one source to find all of the years, the square footages, the expected useful lives of components. So this, we've figured, you have to do the building condition survey anyways for New York State SED. So why not combine that together and really make it a useful tool for you? All right, any other questions?
Just a point of clarification for the board. So what we have on tonight for your review and approval would be accepting the bids for the capital outlay project that that Ed went over. We were successful in getting we had 2 bids and we had a successful bid there to do this work. And a resolution awarding that bid, that capital outlay project bid, and then a resolution to appoint IBI to do the building condition survey work that that Ed just reviewed. That contract salary at the time that we selected IBI, we asked that they submit a cost for the building condition survey, which they did. And so that was known to us for some time, and which is aidable as well. All right. So I think that's it for you guys. We've covered a few on here with the capital improvement project, as well as the building condition survey and the capital outlay project. So right. If there's no
other questions.
Thanks, guys.
No. Thank you so much, everyone.
Have a happy
have
holiday.
Have a good holiday.
Thank you, guys. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Sorry, Pat, this is like my first ever Zoom meeting, so I was on mute. I had a question on just on what the monetary cost for the building condition survey was for the IBI proposal?
It's 41,500. And it's aidable. It's money that is aidable because it is, it's considered capital project work, really. It is
That's the-
required every 5 years. So when they, pardon me?
For whatever our normal aid ratio is, building aid ratio is.
Nick, I believe it's at least 80%. Is that correct?
Yes, at least 80%, and it might be at our building aid ratio, but I can't exactly recall right now.
So what they submitted at the time when we selected them for architect was 8 cents per square foot, and that's the normal. There's a range that architects will use. They selected 8 cents per square foot. Some of the other architects we looked at were higher, some were a little lower, but we took them as a package with their salary for the overall $49.6 million capital project. And we had that as a separate number. And so that's 8 cents times 520,000 square feet of space that we have in the district. And that's where you come up with the 41,500, which is then aidable by the state at least 80%.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, moving on to pandemic response update. Just a few numbers. As I think everybody knows, that we are seeing an uptick in the number of positive cases in the county. There were 75 positive cases yesterday in the county, 48 today. There's 403 overall positive cases in St. Lawrence County. We have 17 currently in Messina as of today, which is up from 14 yesterday and 10 the day before. 21 hospitalized across the county, which is up from 15 yesterday. So we're not heading in the right direction. And part of that is from their public health will tell you that's from part of it's the Thanksgiving gatherings. Our positivity rate over the last 7 days for the county is last I checked was 3.9%. This week we had a positive case with a staff member at the high school. And based on our contact tracing protocols, there weren't any students or staff that were required to quarantine given the level of contact. And so we were able to keep the high school open. Just today, I sent you an email that we had a positive case with a staff member at Madison. Again, based on the contact, we were looking at the possibility of one staff member, but there weren't contact with students for that case at Madison. I wanted to mention briefly the process that we go through for quarantine, because I've had some questions lately about this, and I think it's important everybody understand how the decisions are made with public health. When we are informed that there is a positive case, either a student or a staff member, immediately that information goes to our head nurse, Anne Marie Miller. Anne Marie has been trained by public health. She's been provided with a form in order to ask the questions and get the possible contacts. A close contact is generally considered someone who has been within six feet or less with a person for 10 minutes or more, or 15 minutes over a 24-hour period. So she looks at that information, and then what she'll do is contact those staff members and let them know that they're a possible contact and that they should remain home until public health contacts them and lets them know, and then she submits that information to public health. If it's students, and we're talking about many students, she may elicit the help of the other nurses. If it's a student at one of the elementaries, she'll elicit the help of the nurses to make those phone calls to the families to have those students stay out of school until until public health contacts them. So then public health will we'll contact them. I know they've had, with all of these numbers, it's been a challenge for them to get to everybody in a timely manner. But at that point, they're out of school or work. So it's really the professionals here that are making the decisions. The administration does not make the decisions on who's in school or out. It's made by the nurse, the head nurse, contact with public health. If there is a question, as there was this week, about is it a close contact or is it not a close contact, then she contacts public health, gives them the fact pattern, and then they make the decision whether the person should be quarantined or not. That happened, in fact, this week, where there was a question. She contacted public health. So someone who thought they were going to be quarantined ended up, after public health was contacted, that they didn't have to quarantine. That's how it happened a few times. And we had one today, as a matter of fact, with a staff member that same question has come up, and it's now in front of public health, and we're waiting a response from it. The other point I'd like to make, I guess, comes up as a question is, if someone decides to go and get a test just for their relatives coming in, or out of an abundance of caution, they're not having symptoms, and they go to get a test, they can't come back to work until the results of that test are provided to the district. And that's not and none of this is our rule. It's the rule of that is public health. If a student has, or a staff member has symptoms, and with COVID, it could be many things. It could be a headache, could be stuffy nose, could be a sore throat. It mimics many of the common colds or influenza. They also can't come back until they've seen their healthcare provider. And either we get a note that states there's some kind of chronic other reason for it, or they get a negative test to come back. And this gets very frustrating for many of our parents, where the children are staying out of school because they had the sniffles or a headache. But that is, our nurses have to, they track all of that, and they have to follow public health guidelines where that's concerned. Does anybody have any questions on that piece? Because those are seemingly the ones that come up the most, and I get the frustration where people either have to stay out of work or they have to stay out of school as a student. So the other point I wanted to make was, with the rise of cases, I think we're all concerned whether we're going to end up designated as a microcluster, yellow, orange, or red. Usually it's yellow, starts out. The governor announced some new microclusters this week, and the yellow ones tended to be still around more of the urban areas. We saw Rome, for example, Utica, Batavia. And fortunately, St. Lawrence County was not one of those. If we do end up either as a large part of the county or parts of the county, any of the schools in that yellow zone are required to test 20% of their in-person students and 20% of their staff. And that's why we sent the survey out to parents to ask them if they would be interested in having their child tested. We're just trying to prepare, because we only have 2 weeks from the time that we're labeled a yellow zone, and we won't know that until we get the call. There isn't any way to track it at this point. We want to be prepared, and that's why schools are looking at sending out consent forms to parents now and asking them to sign off to allow their child to have a test here at school. The test, and we sent out a video on this because I know there was some concern by parents that this might be the big nasal swab to the back of the brain. It's not that one. It is actually a smaller one, and it just goes in an inch in both nostrils. And then it's a rapid test. It's put in in a solution for 15 minutes, and they know in 15 minutes if it's positive or negative. So that's why we sent a survey, and we are preparing to also, like other schools, preparing to possibly send out the consent forms. And the last point I have on that is some of you may have read that last Friday, the New York State Public High School Athletic Association canceled state championships for winter sports overall, and they postponed high-risk winter sports indefinitely at this point. It had been postponed previously a couple of times. The last time was it was going to be November 24th, and then January 4th, and now we're not sure if they'll choose a new date or not. You see that we have on the agenda tonight for personnel is a rifle coach. It's a low-risk sport. It's the only one that would be good to go. I think it's probably the only one in St. Lawrence County that'll be good to go because there aren't other rifle teams in the county. They would go out to the Rod and Gun Club, and they would train and do their shooting there, and then that would be uploaded, and they would be competing against other schools in the state that have a rifle team. We're trying to give those students at least an opportunity to have that connection to a team. Any questions on pandemic response? Okay, I'm going to share my screen again because I'm going to briefly pull up here the strategic plan. So since 2016, we've had a district level committee of about 30 people of all different stakeholders from the community and parents and students and staff administration that have come together each year, and they look at our strategic plan and our metrics that we evaluate ourselves on, and we make changes to it. We also have district level committees that also meet with Prism Systems, which is our consultant each year. And we have metrics such as graduation rates, state test scores, chronic absenteeism, and several others. A few years ago, we revised our mission to educate, inspire, and empower all students to fulfill their potential as learners and citizens. In our vision, we aspire to be a leading educational community that values diversity and prepares students to meet today's goals and tomorrow's opportunities. And then you can see here what our core beliefs are, which number one, this committee, and these have not changed since 2016, that students are our first priority and our decisions are made in regard to what's best interests of our students. Now, this year, because of the pandemic, there are some things that are very difficult both to measure or to do. For example, we did not have Regents exams, as you know, in June. And so that was one of our metrics. We did not have 3 through 8 exams last spring, which is also a metric. And our chronic absenteeism is, our absence rates, our attendance rates are very difficult to gauge right now because of the way we are doing hybrid and remote and the like. So this year, instead of doing the 4 days where we meet one day with the district level committee and then the next day with high school and then the next day with junior high and the next day with elementary, we just decided to meet as administration, first of all, with Prism Systems and look at our plan. And then we brought the district level committee together, including Pat Bronchetti, our board president, together, look at what our goals would be for this year. And so the ones you see in bold are the ones we're focusing on. It's certainly providing a safe, effective learning environment for our students and staff during the pandemic is top of the list. That's work we've done with reopening plans, screening, cleaning, PPE, resources for remote instruction, planning for potential testing, all of those things that we're doing to try to keep people safe, but still learning. And implement our district comprehensive improvement plan to increase graduation rates, reduce dropout rates, and improve attendance. This is, we have a committee that's worked on this. This is our DSIP plan. Stephanie Allen, our curriculum director, is leading this. And they're looking there at focusing on student engagement, K through 12 writing, parent engagement, student attendance, and social emotional welfare. And speaking of which, we're providing resources we feel with the anxiety and the trauma that people are facing is to look closely at that aspect as well. Kristen Colarusso Martin, our community schools director, has played a key role in this, along with our counseling team. And they have a district-wide committee. They received a mindfulness grant where they're working with our staff and students on anxiety relief, whether it's yoga, whether it's breathing exercises, expanding. We're looking at expanding mental health counseling with citizen advocates to junior high. We had a very successful program at high school this year. So we're looking at junior high, and we're working on also on a possible telehealth clinic. And then growing the community schools model. We're looking at parent cafes. We've been doing family home visits, a grant for community food distribution coordination, and a lot of other things there. And then, of course, we have our capital project, which we talked a lot about tonight. So these are all areas that we're looking to focus on. And our metrics here are, again, it's tough to be, when you look at some of these targets, we're still keeping the targets in place. You've seen with our ELA exams, we've tended to be on an upward trajectory. With our grade 3 through 8 math exams on an upward trajectory, but we didn't have them last year. Regents exams overall have been a bit up and down. But again, those weren't offered this year. Graduation rate, 4-year graduation rate is, we've been getting an uptick, a slight uptick there. And that work will continue. We also look at some of these other factors that we're targeted for at the state level. What percent of our students get advanced Regents diplomas? It's been increasing over time, and getting the CTE endorsement, the career and technical endorsement, and those passing IB exams, scoring greater than a 4. And now we're one of the only, well, we are, I think right now, the only school in St. Lawrence County that has the seal of biliteracy, and that actually gives us points as well at the state level for our accountability. Questions or comments on our strategic planning for this year? Just want to thank everybody who has worked on that and has been involved, and everyone on the committee. Moving on then to our. Yeah. Go ahead. Sorry, pal. Sorry, Paul.
Sorry, I just was a little slow in unmuting. The targets for 2023 have not really been adjusted much at all, given the pandemic, right?
That's right. We're kind of staying a little steady towards 2023 at this point.
Mhm.
We're seeing mostly an upward trajectory, but I think with the pandemic, there's there's some concern. We have some we're going to be seeing some gaps too in learning when so much in-person instruction has been lost. It's been a challenge to always engage students on remote learning. That's a problem across the country, and we're seeing it here as well.
It's a lot of screen time.
Yes, it is. Tough for on the little ones, but it's tough on many others too.
Okay.
Okay. So the next is the memorandum of agreement with the Messina Building Administrators Association, our administration and transportation director. Our transportation director retired in June, at the end of June. And at that time, because we didn't have a civil service, well, partly because we didn't have a civil service list and would have to go out for provisional, the board set a rate to keep our current transportation director on. Even though he's retired, he gets a rate to stay on in that position until we fill it. We were only looking at doing 72 days which would take us largely into December. What I'm recommending tonight is that we continue to keep him in that position. Having an experienced transportation director with over 20 years of experience in the midst of a pandemic, with knowledge of the district, the students, the employees, the routing software, and all 19A testing, safety protocols, and all that goes into that, that it's in our best interest to keep him on as long as we can. And if he's willing to do it, I think we benefit from it. So it's a mutual benefit. My recommendation would be that we would go out in the early spring and would advertise for the position. But the MBAA has requested that we have an agreement that both sides agree that this is temporary, and that this is a position that is in that contract, and that we will be seeking a candidate to fill the position come spring, rather than filling it with a retiree. Does anybody have questions on that? Okay. The other request I'm asking from the board tonight is a creation of a teacher assistant in special education. We received this request from the junior high principal as well as the director of special education. We've been unsuccessful in filling a secondary special ed position at the junior high since there was a resignation before the year started. It is very challenging, as we find, and all schools are finding, to have a secondary special ed certification. So after we have not been able to fill that position, but we've had continued students moving in and that need service, our recommendation is that we fill it with a teacher assistant, and that teacher assistant would work under a special education teacher. And hopefully we'll find somebody that is interested in obtaining their secondary special ed certification. To date, we've been successful using this model so far with a special ed position at the high school. We're in process with that with a tech position at junior high, as well as another special ed position at the high school. So we're in the mode of kind of growing our own, because there are needs. It's not only about the needs of the students, which is important, but we also have to remain within compliance under Commissioner's Regulations Part 200 for the number of students that are in resource rooms or need consultant teaching on their IEPs. So that's my recommendation, would be to create this position, and it's on for your approval. Okay, any questions? The last one I have is the donations to the district. We're very fortunate to have several donations to the district again this time. You can see them listed there. A drum set for our band program, $250 from Walmart that would go to the junior high school for the Family and Consumer Science program. We have a $4,000 donation from Tracy Bird to the Community Schools program. We greatly appreciate it. Tracy is an alumni of Messina. That's very generous of her. And that will go to support our community schools program. Michael's Corporation, this is the company that is building the smart pathway for NIPA that you're seeing that's going from Messina all the way to Krogan. They've donated $3,106 to the district to help needy families during the holiday season. And then we have two of our students who are looking to get their silver award for Girl Scouts. They created and donated some lanyards for masks. That's Caitlin Dosty and Christine Grant. And I met with both of them. They also created some videos about COVID and being safe, following safe practices with COVID. So we are very appreciative of that as well. And that's it, Pat.
Okay, Pat, thank you. Next up, business manager. I believe Nick and Mallory are both online, so if you guys wouldn't mind, please.
So the first item I have is just the budget status report. Year to date, we've earned $21.4 million. We've expended $15.6 million, and we have $33.3 million still encumbered for the rest of the year. There's no budget transfers up this month. There actually weren't any done. And then there's some tax corrections. As you can see, some of those are assessor's office error, and then other ones are star corrections. And the star corrections, we can get some reimbursement back from the state. Mallory?
On the November treasurer's report, the month started with 40.8 million, cash receipts of 1.5 million, cash disbursements of 6 million, ending the month with 36.3 million. On the October internal claims audit report, 8 warrants verified in the amount of 3.7 million, 136 claims verified with no errors. There's 2 separate November reports. We've had 2 auditors doing them. That's the reason for that. On the first report, 1 warrant verified in the amount of $2,240.20. Just the 1 claim, no errors. And on the second November report, 1 warrant verified in the amount of $965,000, 19 claims total with no errors. And on the BOCES claim audit report, 1 warrant verified for the amount of 1.9 million, 5 claims total with no errors. And that's all.
Any questions for Nick or Mallory? If not, thanks, Nick. Thanks, Mallory. Now we'll move on to our recommended actions. First, 4 policies are up for second reading or approval. We got policy 5676, privacy and security for student data and teacher and principal data. Policy 5680, safety and security. Policy 5681, school safety plans. And policy 5682, cardiac automated external defibrillators in public school facilities. I have a motion to approve those, please.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any discussion or questions on those? Okay, all those in favor then? Thank you. Next 2 are policies for review only, and it's policy 5690, exposure control program, and policy 5692, human immunodeficiency virus-related illnesses. So can I have a motion to review those policies?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion or questions? All those in favor? Okay, thank you. Next group, another 4 this time, is first reading. Policy 5691, communicable diseases. Policy 5710, transportation program. Policy 5720, transportation of students, and policy 5730, school bus safety program. I have a motion for those 4.
Pat? You?
I'm hearing voices. Someone asking me a question?
Kevin is.
Yeah. Can you break out the first one?
Yes, sure. So I have a motion for 5691, communicable diseases, please.
So
Okay.
moved.
Second.
Okay, it sounds like we might have discussion or questions on that policy. If not, can I have a show of hands to approve that first reading? Okay, and any show of hand for nay against that policy? Okay, looks like it passed. So we'll do the next 3 policies, 5710, 5720, and 5730. I have a motion for those 3, please.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion on those 3? All those in favor then? Okay, looks like everybody. Thank you. And the final 2 for policies are to rescind, and they are policy 5715, transportation to school sponsored events, and policy 5750, school bus safety program. I have a motion to rescind those 2, please.
So moved.
Second.
Any more discussion or questions? Okay, all those in favor, show of hands, please. Okay, thank you. Okay, now moving on, we got next item is accepting of bids for the capital outlay project for 2020, 2021.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any more discussion? All those in favor? Okay, I think we got everybody. Thank you. The resolution for awarding the bid for the capital A project 2021.
So moved.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Thank you. Resolution appointing the IBI group for the building condition survey.
So moved.
Second.
Any more discussion? All those in favor then? Thank you. Next one is approval of the MOA for the MBAA Transportation Director to keep him on.
Motion.
Second.
Any discussion, questions? Okay, all those in favor, keep him on. Okay, thank you. Next is approval of donations to the district.
So move.
Second.
And again, as always, we'd like to thank those individuals and companies for their generosity. Any other questions or discussions? All those in favor then, please. Thank you. Next would be approval of the school budget calendar for 2021-22.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions or discussion? All those in favor? Thank you. Approval of the resolution to establish the special education teacher assistant position.
So moved.
Second.
Any more questions regarding that position? All those in favor? Thank you. Approval of the budget status report.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Okay, got everybody. Thank you. Approval of the treasurer's report for November 2020.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Thanks. Approval of the internal claims audit report general for October and November 2020.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Thank you. Approval of internal claims audit report for BOCES for November 2020, please.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Okay, thanks. Approval of the CSE CPSC report.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, please. Okay, that's everybody. And the last item for approvals are the personnel actions. I'll turn it over to Mr. Brady, please.
Thanks, Pat. I'm going to break a few of these out as requested on the personnel action items. I would recommend number 1 on the personnel action items list.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? And opposed?
Keep your hands up. So we
I
have 4
believe
now.
it passed 5-4.
It failed 5.
I miscounted.
So what do you have, Angie?
I have Baines, Jodell, Baker, Leclerc. Who else did I miss for a no?
Amber, were you a no?
She was a no.
Yes.
Let's just call for a roll call.
Yeah. Angie, you want just call us out individually, we'll say yay or nay.
I will, yes. President Bronchetti,
Yes.
Vice President Haggett,
Yay.
Trustee Baines, Trustee Baines,
Can't hear you, Amber.
okay. Trustee Fountain? No.
You're muted.
Yes, sorry.
Trustee Baker?
No.
Trustee Peretta?
Yes.
Trustee Hammock?
No.
Trustee Leclerc?
No.
Trustee LeBlanc?
Yay.
Trustee Fountain, I'm sorry, were you a yes or no?
I'm a yes.
So 5 yeses and 4 nos.
All right.
Thank you. I'm recommending numbers 2 through 17.
Motion.
Second.
Any discussion on that group? All those in favor? Looks like everybody. Thank you.
Okay, I'm recommending number 18.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Abstaining? Mr. Fountain? Abstaining. That's his daughter.
Thank you. I'm recommending 19. Where am I here? 19 through 23.
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Okay, we got everybody. Thank you.
I'm recommending numbers 24 and 25.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Questions? All those in favor? 6. And opposed? Okay, so passes 8-1.
And 26.
So moved.
Second.
Any more discussion? All those in favor then? Okay, I think that was everybody. Thank you. Okay, I think that was all our items for approval tonight. Any board member with new business?
You going back into executive session?
Yes, we got some things to wrap up for sure. We will not take any action in executive session. Pat, is the plan, will you send us new links or can we use the?
Let me do this. I'll go back in and see if that, Mike, maybe Mike or Angie know, if we go back and use the previous link that was set up for executive session, can we get back in it? You guys know?
I don't know.
I've never tried using an old link, Pat. To be on the safe side, I would just push out a new link to everybody, just so it's not compromised.
Okay. Is that something you can do, Angie, for us, or?
Sure. I'll set it up.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
myself and the board.
Could we take a 5-minute?
Take
All
about that
right,
long.
guys. Can I have a motion to adjourn our meeting though, before you run off?
So moved. Second.
Okay, all those in favor? Sure, it's unanimous. All right. See you in a few minutes, everybody. Good. The rest of you, good night and have happy holidays.
Happy holidays, everybody.
Okay.